Hi, welcome to exercise 5.2. In this exercise, we're going to visualize data from two different data sets. Let's begin. So here's the problem I'm posing to you. We have two data sets, one that has the GDP by year for every country, and then we also have a second data set that has a life expectancy for every country by year. And what I like us to do is simply merge the columns of interest, the GDP for every country for just 2016, with the life expectancy for 2016 into a single data set, and then we'll go ahead and visualize it. So step one is to import and format our data. So we'll begin in our R Markdown document. You see that I started one here that I called exercise 5.2.rmd. Has the basic markdown elements. And on line 9, I'm going to start by making a comment that just says step one, import data. And then we'll begin by creating an R chunk that's just 3 backticks using the curly brackets and 3 more backticks here. And here's where I can write the code to import my data. We'll begin by importing our data. Of course, here we're going to use the reference to the read R library. So then we can use the read underscore CSV function to bring in our gdp.csv data and also our life expectancy underscore CSV data. And I've assigned those both to different variables, one called GDP, the second one called LE. So these are two of the data sets that we'll be working with for this problem. So step one is just to import them using this code. And so I'll just press run to run this chunk. And you see that we've been successfully able to import this data. And what I'll do is just go to the environment tab here to show you that this data has actually been brought in. We can double click to take a quick preview of the GDP data and the life expectancy data. Step 3 involves merging a few columns from the data sets together into a new third data set. Specifically, we want to reference the column 2016 in the life expectancy data set, and in the GDP data set, we want to reference the country name and then, of course, the 2016 GDP, which we can find over here in the second to last column. So let's return back to our R Markdown. And what I'm going to do is create another step 2, and I'll call this format data. Next, we're going to insert an R chunk. Then we're going to extract the country name column from the GDP dataset, assign that to a vector called country. And then we're going to extract the 2016 column from the GDP dataset, divide that by a trillion, and we're going to assign that to a vector called GDP 2016. Finally, we're going to extract the 2016 column from the life expectancy data frame, and we're going to assign that to a vector called LE 2016. Let's go ahead and run this code. What you'll notice now is how the values have been added, these different vectors that we've created. Our next step is to combine these into a data frame. Step 3, we're going to create a new data frame. Start by adding a new R chunk. And we're going to use the data.frame function to pass in the new country variable that we created, the new GDP 2016 variable we created, and the new LE 2016 variable that we created. Go ahead and run this. You'll see that we have a new data structure called GDP underscore LE. Let's go ahead and click that to view it. And you can see that we have the GDP for 2016 and the life expectancy for 2016 for every country in our data frame. Okay, our next step is to create a scatter plot of the GDP and life expectancy. So we'll call this step 4, build a scatter plot. And here we'll just start by using the basic plot function. We're plotting the GDP for 2016 on the x-axis and the life expectancy on the y-axis. Our next step is to run our R chunk, and now we see our plot. And our next step is to refine this plot to make it more readable. This is kind of a standard output using the plot function. but we can change some of the aesthetic features and add some information to make the chart more interpretable. Step 5, refining our chart. Well, this clearly shows the output of a scatter plot showing the relationship of GDP for 2016 for each country represented by a circle to its life expectancy. What we want to do is refine it to make it more interpretable. This includes removing some of the non data elements, such as the rectangle around the points. Secondly, we'd want to relabel the X and Y axes to make them more meaningful or understandable for an audience reading our chart. Finally, we'll add some other aesthetic features like changing the colors of the points and adding a title. So we'll begin by noting that this is step 5, refine our chart, insert an R chunk, and I want to walk you through the code that we're going to use to make some refinements. Again, we're going to use the same plot function, plotting our X variable and then our Y variable as the first two parameters. Then we're going to add some additional parameters. The first one is going to be XLab. This is going to be the title that we want for our X-axis. You can see right now it's just using the variable name. Let's change that. We'll call it GDP in trillions of USD. Next, we want to change the Y label so that we pass in the Y lab parameter. And the string that we use to name that Y lab is life expectancy. Next, we'll add the main parameter. This will give our chart a title. We'll call this GDP and life expectancy in 2016 by country. Next, we're going to remove the frame plot. So this is a parameter that we can add. If we set frame plot to false, this black rectangle will be removed. Finally, if we want to change the colors of our points, we can pass in a color value. Here I've passed in a hexadecimal color value. You can pass in other values by simply writing in the name of the color, like red, white, blue, or purple. Next, you notice that I've set the limit for the particular x-axis in this case from a range of 0 to 100. The reason for that is you'll notice that we begin at 0 on the x-axis. However, it looks like that this outlier is outside of the range for our x-axis. I want to make this balanced and make sure that we have additional ticks on our x-axis, 80 and 100. So therefore, I set the max x limit to 100 in this case. Let's go ahead and run our code. Here you can see a big improvement. I have a nice title, my y-axis label, and my x-axis label are labeled appropriately, and I've also have accurate x-axis. Now it's your turn to continue with this problem. I'd like you to create a histogram of the GDP for 2016, and I'd also like you to create a box and whiskers plot of life expectancy for 2016. Good luck.